Good morning. To forestall any confusion, I'm Linda, and that's Thomas. And we're going to talk to you about video production at Steppenwolf from two different angles. One is from a strategic angle, and it involves a lot of research that we've done with our audience, and actually a lot of reflection we've done inside our own organization. And the second, obviously, Thomas will actually talk about how we actually make a video and share with you some of the things to avoid, because we've pretty much hit them all. I'll tell you that were we close?
We're almost there,
We're
yeah.
almost there. We talk it to you from these two angles because these are in combination the engines that drive everything in the marketing department when it comes to engagement with our audiences, and obviously has application to how we think about making and using videos. The first thing you have to understand is at Steppenwolf, we have a mission, and we've shorthanded it. We call it public square. We think of our theater as being a place where our work on stage incites a conversation among our audience and out into the community at large about the way we live. And we've said that, you know, in light of how our audience is changing in its relationship with theaters, i.e., subscription seems to continue to be trailing off. We need to find another mode of creating a relationship beyond subscription. And we said we wanted to move our relationship, to refine it and to redefine it, and to move it from this idea of retail transaction, I'm going to sell you a ticket to a show, or I'm going to sell you a ticket to subscription, and to have it move to a deeper model, one that's based on conversation and engagement and participation. Might be like 4 slides in by this time. There we go. And so when we took this on as a project for ourselves, we said there were a couple of things that we obviously didn't know and that we needed to learn in order to be successful. So we set for ourselves like three strategies in order to be successful at engagement. One was we needed to know who we were talking to, we need to know what they were interested in, and we needed to know why they came to our theater. And as we learned that, we developed a second strategy, which is an understanding that these people have all different ways they want to be engaged, and it's a very personal thing for them. And so we had to figure out how, if we were going to deepen engagement, how were we going to allow it to be customized by these people that came to our theater and to our website. And the final thing that we learned was that not only are there different things they want to know about you, but there's different ways they want to receive the information. So if you thought that you could only do it through one avenue of communication, you would be really quite wrong, because people have very different orientations to the way they like to receive information. So we really dug in and tried to figure out who was in our audience and try to understand what do they think of us. And there were actually 3 big things that we learned. One was in the arena of shared demographics and behavior. And one is, and this is probably the most important thing that we learned about our audience, we knew they were educated and college graduates, but we had no idea how important that one single trait was to how our audiences hook up with our theater. Our audiences are probably even more educated than the average arts audience. We know that they live in a very highly defined geographical area. It's really Highland Park to Hyde Park. So there's a huge city and Chicago orientation, a community sense to our audience. And finally, and this was one that kind of we would never have predicted this, they're very comfortable with direct marketing, which is important because that's the way we talk to them. If they're not feeling okay about sending you a check through the mail for $200 for a subscription, or to go online to buy a ticket, or to receive a flyer through the mail and to do business that way, then we're kind of in trouble. So those are the 3 most important things. And for today's conversation, it's the first one that we're going to really, really focus on. They also, regardless of whether they were long-time subscribers, first-time subscribers, single-ticket buyers, whether they were subscribers or single-ticket people at all, one of the things we learned about our audiences was this high education was an aspect of their personality, and that is that they would describe themselves as lifelong learners. These are people who are very interested in seeking intellectual stimulation. They like critical thinking. They would tell you that to grow as a person, I need to be pushed out of my comfort zone. I look for places that allow me to do that. I view myself as a risk taker. I think I have an above average knowledge of theater. And the part that was kind of thrilling for us is then they looked at Steppenwolf as a vehicle for making all of that happen in their life. They had high esteem for our artistic judgment. They saw the theater as having a bigger agenda than just putting on 5 separate plays in a particular season. Sure, there's a Steppenwolf type of play, they acknowledge that, but for them, one of the kind of tangible pieces of evidence about our theater's view of our role with our audience was the fact that we use theme in organizing our season. We have a thought, a through line, an idea that we discuss, and each of the 5 plays in our season is in conversation with that theme in one direction or another. And it was astounding to hear the reaction to that, simply that gesture that the theater makes towards our audience, as saying, I consider you a peer in this conversation. Here's what I've chosen, and these are the 5 different ways we're going to go about it. And they really responded to that. And one of the things I love about talking about audiences is they always find a way to make whatever is going on in your organization reflect back on themselves. And so what they would tell you is that Steppenwolf is not a passive theater, and Steppenwolf does not have a passive audience. By the way, I'm a part of that audience. I am a critical thinker. I am interested in intellectual stimulation, and that's why I come. So for us in marketing, no matter what we're doing, and particularly in the arena of technology, the role of it is to deliver on that mission of being public square. How can I engage people in my theater? And there are kind of 2 yardsticks that we use. The first one, and this is the kind of the screen that everything has to pass through, is our engagement is all about our artists talking to the audience about the work on stage. If it doesn't do that in one form or another, we just don't use it. And we know that our audience is very interested in the subject matter of the theme and the subject matter of our individual plays. We are an ensemble theater. They are intensely interested in who's going to be on stage. They're very interested in the playwrights. They're very interested in the director. And so all of our content takes one of those 4 topics, either some fusion of or individual focus on, and that's what we ask ourselves to do for play-by-play. What we hope this has the potential for doing for us, since most of this stuff gets distributed through our website, although QR codes could be a cool idea for us, is that it will allow us to be basically in a 24/7 conversation and engagement with our audience, and to give them, no matter where they are or when they want to tune in, a 24/7 experience with Steppenwolf. So all of this is happening around us, and now we go out and buy the camera and the lights and the mic, and we start to make a video.
So my name is Thomas Weitz. I'm the digital assets manager at Steppenwolf, and I loved Eureka, and so that was hard for me. This is actually really interesting. We've been talking a lot about how technology influences the sort of performance space, or the space where the art is actually being presented. What's interesting about this is I'm actually going to talk to you guys more about how technology influences the creative process and the institutional process. Because no matter what, it doesn't matter how good the strategy is, if you can't actually implement it, it's really not going to make much difference. So I'm going to just talk to you guys a little bit about how we go about creating videos at Steppenwolf, some of the challenges we've had, and some of the successes, hopefully, as well. So I think probably the first step, if you're interested in creating video, and actually I would extend this to creating any content at all, is that there has to be some sort of culture change at your institution. Even if everybody is on board, there are going to be steps that need to be made. And if it's not an integral part of your institution, you're going to come up with some challenges. If you're alone in the battle to bring technology, or specifically video, it's really important to figure out who your champions are, to cultivate advocates, and of course to figure out who your contributors are going to be. Are they going to be people who just work there already, and you're going to hand them a flip cam and hope something happens, or is it going to be someone who you actually hire? The second thing, speaking of hiring, is staffing, and more importantly, how are you going to organize these producers within the larger context of your organization? For us, there's the digital assets team. I manage all of our online content. which includes managing a digital content producer, Joel. And Joel, he does most of the planning, scheduling, shooting, editing, but he always does this in conversation with the rest of us. I also manage half a graphic designer and 2 apprentices or interns. And one of the things I'm going to talk a little bit more when we get into sort of the planning phase is that this isn't a one-person job. This really requires a group of people. The last thing I want to say was about that is, the question of where do these people sit in the organization. At Steppenwolf, digital assets is a part of the marketing department. And that made a lot of sense for us because marketing has often been engaged with, or has been a part of engaging with audiences in lots of different ways, from our front of house to other forms of media, but also because branding and messaging overall play a huge role in your content. For us, it made sense. For some organizations, it won't. It may make more sense that they sit in an artistic department, or perhaps they sit in their own department. For us, that just happened to make the most logical sense.
Although I will say, under the topic of create cultural change, one of the things that's come out of our whole engagement push has been, I think, a new and stronger relationship between marketing and between the artistic department. Because since everything is about artists talking to audience, both sides have to collaborate deeply in order to make this thing really come to life. And we have really a wonderful relationship with the artistic department to make this happen.
Which takes me perfectly into the next step, which is making this creation process a part of your entire company.
You're kidding.
Wow. Okay. I'm just gonna go quick. All right. So what does that mean? So we've got planning, production, and post-production. Those are our 3 different phases. So if we look at planning is made up of brainstorming, where really this is a chance to talk, to go see a reading of a play, talk to a representative from our artistic department. We have several meetings with the entire marketing department where we come up with ideas. And one of the keys is that through training and education and just being a constant presence, we're getting more and more ideas, not only from all the different members of the marketing department, but also from other departments as well. The second is, once we've got an idea, to actually put it into a proposal where we include what's the goal of the video, who's our audience, what's the description, etc. And finally, trying to get all the resources together. This can be a challenge. We were dealing with, in some cases, people who don't see the value of video or don't necessarily want to be documented. Or in the case of wanting to do a audience reaction video or a video where we're documenting the rehearsal process, you're asking people to expose themselves in ways that they didn't ever imagine they would need to. Then we have production, and really the 2 most important things: sweat the details, lots of good planning, figuring out lighting, buy lots of extra batteries. Everything's going to go wrong. I promise. We've had cameras stop in the middle of a great interview, and then the other part is, of course, if you're doing an interview, it's a delicate process. So really thinking through what makes a good interviewer. We've lost videos to bad interviewers, and we've saved a few because of good ones. And then what I was saying earlier, which is you need multiple people to do this. There's lots of equipment potentially involved. Okay, then we get into our last phase of production, which is the editing, approval process, and finally the distribution. And the one thing I want to say about that is it's good to have people look at this at multiple stages. We've had videos that never made it online, that made it online and got pulled off, that made it online and just were duds. And getting eyes on that early and often is great. And then the last part is, of course, think about where this is going to be. There's nothing saying you have to put your video everywhere. Maybe it's just on YouTube. Maybe you have a particular relationship just with your YouTube audience. Maybe it's just on your website. Maybe it's just on Facebook. And maybe it's everywhere. The last sort of step to a good production process and a good video department is, of course, being able to evaluate the success of your work. It is important what other people at your organization think. This goes back to creating that culture. If you have a good video and people like it, make sure everyone's seen it. check your comments, obviously. What are people saying about it? And finally, analytics. And I think the most important thing about analytics is make sure the numbers that you're looking at relate to that original goal you had set out for your video. If your goal was to sell tickets and people watching the video didn't buy tickets, the video didn't work. If your goal was to get more engagement and interest, then the number of views is helpful. So to really be aware of what are the data points you're looking at. Where are we time-wise?
You have time to do this.
All right. So I just wanted to show you guys where we started and where we sort of ended up. So we'll do a brief, short little video here so you can see that. Okay. So this is, I'm going to show you, this was one of the first videos that we did.
I'm playing several characters. The two main ones are John.
All right, so audio's okay, video quality's not great, and for the next 3 minutes, the camera doesn't change. This is all you get. He does say some interesting things, though. Okay, that's where we started. All right, and this is one of our more recent videos.
I love to think of this room as kind of a playground and a laboratory and an exploratory space. I never even have a goal about what page we're going to get to. Depending on my mood and my energy level, I can be like a little kid in rehearsal, or I can be very focused. I feel like when people are freest and know that on stage they can try anything and that nothing is out of the question, they do things that are unexpected. You know, sometimes I'll just say 1, 2, 3, go.
Anyway, you get the idea. So so you can watch the rest of the video on YouTube or our website, but you get the idea. Over a long term, we really developed the process and created a good video culture, and this has been the result. Thanks.